welcome back to the class, everyone. A couple of months ago, we made the very humble video of best cleanup team for every solo Galactic Legend. And while I think this video really did address the best cleanup with the highest win percentage against each Galactic Legend individually, both in 3v3 and in 5v5, I think that it was a little bit lacking in taking on the challenge of not just finding out what's best against cleaning up Galactic Legends in the 96% win rate, but what's the best budget cleanup that you actually have? So that is really what today's video intends on discussing. We're going to go through and look up cleanup teams to Galactic Legends, specifically in 5v5 that can help take down those solo Galactic Legends or maybe even more units on the team. That being said, we're going for a mixture of not that expensive of a team as well as something that can actually win. So while it's not going to be 100% of the time always going to work, hopefully it is something you have that you could actually even try. I know that that was not really a complaint, but one note that was made about the last video is talking about Fennec cleaning up Lord Vader isn't all that useful, because typically what leaves Lord Vader as a solo character is Fennec, and that was true about a lot of the counters we talked about in the last video. So starting off here, we're going to talk about Jabba the Hutt. What is the best cleanup team to this massive slug over here? And it's just got to be Mon Mothma. Again, there are several different squads that can take down that solo Jabba, but Mon Mothma has just become a fairly cheap squad in the end game, all things considered. She doesn't really counter any high level team that she's always stuck to. She can beat several things, but typically you already have another counter that can beat it anyways. And on top of that, she just isn't all that great defensively because of Iden and Wampa out there. And my gosh, is she just a good counter to Jabba. I do specifically favor the current team we're looking at that involves Hot Rebel Scout and Pal for the turn meter gains, Kylo Ren for both the damage and a lot of the buffs he gives. And then one thing that I do really like, and this is not a requisite to be able to use this team, but I love, is Wedge on the team. And the reason why I like Wedge is because he puts defense down on his basic, and it's really hard for this not to apply. Not only does Mon Mothma have stat sharing through her kit that is going to ramp up Wedge's potency even if you don't have him modded for it, but Kylo Ren also gives potency up on one of these buffs here. I think it's defense up and speed up, and this one, yeah, this one's potency up and critical chance up. So with all those basics coming in and all the boosted potency, Wedge will be able to apply defense down. So even if you're going up against a Jabba with a Datacron that has 300% defense, this team will tear through it. I have seen so many shocking wins from Mon Mothma versus solo Jabbas, or even Jabbas with one or two adds still alive. Even at lower gear levels like gear 12 or relic ones like mine have, I've used this multiple times. It's never once failed me. I do really like this comp, but you don't even have to necessarily use this comp. I've swapped Kylo Ren for Biggs one time and it still worked. While that's not ideal, it is still an option. So that is our overall best counter for Jabba, aka your mom. Next up is going to be Lord Vader. Lord Vader is a little bit more challenging to solo. Mon Mothma does have a decent shot herself, but I wanted to focus right now on what I believe is the cheapest counter if you're having to do multiple cleanups, and that is Imperial Troopers with a cleanse. You don't necessarily have to have a cleanse for this to work, but it is a lot better when you do. So Lord Vader is always going to be able to go first, really regardless of what you're doing, just because of his base speed as a Galactic Legend, and he's going to put out damage over time. And while damage over time itself isn't really that threatening, it is going to stop all turn meter gain, and that's going to be very problematic because Imperial Troopers, their whole thing of why they can just smack through a lot of different opponents is because they gain so much turn meter due to Veer's lead and Admiral Piet's Emperor's Trap. So if we bring a cleanse into the team, we can immediately cleanse the dots whenever they come, or maybe even not immediately, but on the second turn cleanse them, and then Imperial Troopers can really just get going and Dart can punch his way through Lord Vader. The other option outside of Shock here is Turret if you have him geared. I don't. And I guess the most expensive option that might be available for a lot of people would be Iden as the fifth in here. The one thing I will say, I've used Iden, she needs to be somewhat speedy, because what you really don't want is for the first 4 troopers here to take a turn, and then Iden goes, cleanses everyone, and then Lord Vader loops back around and gets a second hit. Iden really needs to be faster than at a minimum Veers, because then, you know, 3 troopers go, Iden goes cleanses, you can now gain turn meter. Veers uses mass assist, which in turn gives a lot of turn meter because of Emperor's Trap, and you can get going and just kill Lord Vader. But overall, that is eventually what you want to do. Range is important for all the extra assists. Dark is your armor penetration, really, to be able to punch through Lord Vader, and then Admiral Piet and Veers are not even close to being negotiable. So that is overall the best cleanup to Lord Vader. Again, obviously, that is the best budget cleanup to Lord Vader. Obviously, Fennec would be better herself, but most of us got to this situation by using Fennec in the first place when Maul decided to one-shot someone he shouldn't have. Next up is going to be Darth Tantrum, aka Kylo Ren, and I have CLS tagged here because he will consistently do it, but CLS really doesn't fit the market of budget. CLS, especially right now with the Grit Cron, and even before this with the Scoundrel Crons, or even before that with the Rebel Crons, CLS has always just been a really expensive team because it's good, and that's entirely meant as respect to CLS and his team. They can always take down a really high level targets. So while they will obviously destroy a solo Kylo Ren, they're not really budget. And the only reason why I have 2 teams here, though, is this bottom team, you really need the majority of it at relics to be able to take Kylo Ren down. So let's talk about this Geonosian team that can beat Kylo Ren in a solo situation. This is very important. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot put Poggle in here. If you put Poggle in here, Poggle will reduce the enemy's turn meter, and when you reduce SLKR's turn meter, especially in really small increments, he will gain max health and max protection, and you will essentially make him invincible because of how his unique works. And it's, yeah, whenever Darkseid gains bonus turn meter, they lose 10% of max health protection. Whenever, and the opposite is true, whenever they gain 10% or lose turn meter, they gain 10% max health and max protection. And that's happening like 5 times a turn if you put Poggle in there. So Poggle is a death sentence, so you don't use him. I do really like Droideka here, and he would do a lot better at relics. But the reason why Droideka is here, not only, you know, he's a separatist, so he kind of has some underlying synergy there, but his basic attack does damage, true damage, by the way, so we don't have to worry about critting SLKR because a lot of times you can't when he has advantage. But it does damage based on the scale between the difference in his speed and the enemy speed. SLKR is a galactic legend. Even if he's not speed modded, they typically sit at about 550 after you factor in all the bonuses. So Droideka can hit really hard after that. And if you, actually not even if you, but actually if you have a Zeta, he will be assisting every single time. Well, not every single time. He has a chance to assist every single time a Separatist takes a turn when he is in his shield generator form, which means you get even more damage, and then eventually you do get a fairly big hit on him when Droideka actually does get his turn. So that's really how this is meant to work. Again, don't take Poggle. I know that his ability block looks fairly tempting, but SLKR will not like it. And again, CLS will also just walk over SLKR, but doesn't really fit the term of budget. Next up is going to be Wampa versus Sith Eternal. I think this is one of the most known counters out there. And Wampa actually has a somewhat of a decent shot against Sith Eternal, depending on what the comp is, even in 5v5, or really with the whole team being there is what I meant. But it becomes even more problematic for C to win now in the 1v1, because we look at Wampa's JAC Omicron, which is really what we're going for here. He is going to have double all of his stat gains. So he'll gain 75% defense, max health, max protection, and offense doubled if there's only one enemy at the start of the battle. So you've already used something to clear all the sides on C. Maybe use Grievous and you killed all the really good sides that were there, like Malik or whatever. But now you're stuck with this lone C. You have to take him down. Wampa's your guy. You will eventually just build enough damage to be able to counteract all the protection that he himself can gain. He can't really gain ultimate because he can't link anyone because there's only one target for him to take down the entire time. And eventually Wampa will just eat him. It might take several minutes, but he'll eventually get there. I guess, word to the wise, don't try it against one that has an ability to block Datacron, but that's about to go away, I think, anyways. Next up is going to be Ray's counter. We're going to look at the Geonosians once again. And first, before we talk about why we have Trench in the leadership, let's talk about Geonosians in general. They are going to constantly assist out of turn. That's great because not only do we love to do damage, but Rey needs multiple crits on her to remove the inspired, so the turn meter gains we're getting don't actually end up feeding her additional mastery. So that's very nice. On top of that, Poggle can consistently ability blocker, and when you combine in Geonosian Soldier's tenacity down, the ability block should be very consistent because we're getting multiple chances to do it, as well as having tenacity down, so it should be applied all the time. And then spy will eventually deal all the damage. Now, the question is, why is Trench here? And if you don't have Trench, like he's not unlocked or whatever, that's fine. Just run GBA lead and run all 5 Geonosians. But Trench lead really is preferred here, and there are 2 reasons why. Actually, there's several reasons why, but 2 relating to his lead specifically. The number 1, he gives % bonuses to max health and max protection. When you look at GBA's leadership, this is really friendly in the beginning game and really terrible in the end game. He gives flat health and protection. If you do the math, and we're not going to do that right now, but if you do the math at relics, 15,000 is garbage. Actually, I guess we can do the math right now. You can see my GBA here. That's not even, like, if we look at his health, which is the lower one, that's not even, what, 1/5 of his health? So that's like a 20% health gain, I guess, overall in GBA. Whereas with Trench, we get a whole 30%, and that's just the health, not even including the protection. So a Trench lead overall just gives more survivability than GBA's does. And then on top of that, we get some other we don't get all of this because a lot of this wants specific things. But when we have protection over time on a character, they had 30% extra defense penetration. And against the Galactic Legend, that's pretty handy. And especially because Trench can give it to the rest of this team, you don't need an extra character like Watt or something out there to give the protection up in the first place. Not to mention, he'll also give out Tactical Supremacy, which is another buff and more critical damage and potency for your whole team. So he just ends up adding a lot. Not to mention his shock as well, which again will land because Galactic Legend Ray will be stuck with tenacity down, so she won't even be able to heal, assuming she would have Health Steal or something like that, because she'll constantly be shocked. So he just adds much more complexity to this counter, and again, in a 5v5 scenario, you should be able to take down Ray. I also personally like it just because my Trench is already R7 because I had him there for Datacrons, and I really don't want to take up Geonosian or Fun Sack, I guess, is the kind of odd man out there. So does make the counter a little bit more consistent, but ultimately Geos are the ones really doing the work there. Next up is going to be Jedi Master Luke. And now I will be honest, these last 2, a ton, and I mean a ton of things counter these 2 Galactic Legends. Like, you probably aren't even clicking on this video to find out how to counter Jedi Master Luke. And the reason why is both Jedi Master Luke and Jedi Master Kenobi just rely so much on their allies. What they can actually do themselves is not much. Like, we don't need to talk about it too much. But Jedi Master Luke has inherited teachings where he will deal a ton of damage based off of his max protection. You don't get that if you don't have allies, because you have to call someone to assist, and you're the only one there. So you're just stuck with this 2 normal special abilities that won't really get very far. And the one thing I really like using against it that's fairly cheap, that isn't really being used anywhere else, is going to be JTR, BB-8, R2, and then the 2 vets. The reason why this is nice is because JTR herself has a lot of control, being able to use ability blocks and turn meter manipulation. But BB-8 also has tenacity down, so you kind of guarantee all those debuffs land in the first place, as well as a turn meter reduction. And then Veteran Smuggler Han has stagger on basic, as well as an ability block if Jedi Master Luke didn't have any turn meter to begin with, and it just kind of gives you all the tools you need. R2 is pretty nice because everyone will constantly cleanse themselves from whatever they get whenever they critically hit him, because JTR does give boosted critical chance as well. So overall, just a really great team to have to be able to clean up Master Luke, and probably one that you're not using in that many places. But like I said, a bunch of things can beat up Luke. I've beaten up Luke with Night Sisters before. We've done it with Grievous, although Grievous can kind of one-shot the entire team. That's more of an off meta than it is a cleanup. And now, last and least is going to be Jedi Master Kenobi. And you'll see here, the reason why we don't have any like planned cleanup for him sitting here is because everything already mentioned in the list will clean him up. I guess actually except JTR. Like, Geonosians will clean up Jedi Master Kenobi. Wampa will clean up Jedi Master Kenobi. I guess Geonosians again will clean up Master Kenobi. CLS will do it. I mean, Gas will do it too, but that's really not budget at all. Gas is a very expensive team. Troopers can do it, although you want full troopers and not Shock. And then Mon Mothma can do it. Again, Jedi Master Kenobi, very similar to Jedi Master Luke, just really doesn't have what it takes to be able to beat full teams on his own. He really does have, not just like to have his own, friend Cat there, but he likes to have the rest of his buddies too, to be able to assist out a turn. That will allow him to get his ultimate faster, as well as build up mastery, because when he targets someone, he gets mastery. It's also worth mentioning, I guess, while we're looking at these 2 last Jedi here, they are countered pretty easily by Inquisitors. And I mean like bad Inquisitors. You don't necessarily even need to have Grand or Reva to be able to take these down. I realize it's not going to be super consistent, but I once beat a R9 Jedi Master Luke with gear 11 across the board fifth brother lead for Inquisitors, just because of how much natural synergy they have, and again, how much the Jedi really do struggle when they are on their own. They're definitely meant to be used in entire squads. So that is going to be it for today. Let me know in the chat what counters that you found come in handy against cleaning up solo Galactic Legends. And let me know what other videos like this you would like to see. I've been contemplating just making a complete series, not necessarily about cleanups, but more so about planned two-shots, so you can be able to take out those giants that you face in GAC. But until the next time, stay awesome.